Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. I am excited today. I've got Luke Larson, who is the owner of Larson Basement and Bath. They're located in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. Very excited to have you on the show today. Welcome to Builder Stories, Luke.
Thanks so much. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, how did you get into construction, and what does your company do?
Yeah. Great question. So Larson Basement and Bath is our company. We started off as doing carpentry, and then we were kind of general with Larson Custom Construction. Then we changed our name to Larson Basement and Bath. That's kind of the general story of the company as we niched in and brought into our kind of our favorite projects, which are basement build-outs and bathroom remodels. So we are a full-service general contractor. We do everything from design to permits, all the way to cleanup, all construction in between. And all trades, basically. So on those projects, we're really pretty specific to basements and bathrooms. However, we've done plenty of other interior type projects, kitchens and all kinds of interior stuff. So
Nice.
decorative wainscoting, cabinetry, all that type of fun stuff. But interiors is really our specialty, and we absolutely love it. We started in 2021, right during COVID. Been just kind of growing steadily ever since, and loving every minute of it. It's a blast. We love what we do.
Nice. What led you to want to start a construction company?
Yeah, well, my dad's been in construction my whole life, so he's a project manager for a drywall and framing subcontractor on the large scale commercial side of things. So he PM'd the Twin Stadium and big monster hospitals around and different things like that for all the drywall, steel stud framing, insulation, and fireproofing. So he's kind of been in that world my whole life. And I've always been fascinated by his job on the project management side of things because I love details. I'm a super technical person, and it's really fun. So I've always been interested in that. He also happens to be really handy, even though most of his job is at a desk. So the first time I ever finished a basement was when I was in middle school with him. My brothers and I helped him out, and we all kind of took to it, but I think I really took to it, and it just enjoyed every minute of it. I wanted to be down there. I wanted to keep going when the project was done. I'm like, what else can we do? So then we built the deck and did some different stuff. But he taught me a lot about working with my hands in construction when I was a kid. And as I kind of grew up more, learned more about the business side of it, and I've kind of always had an entrepreneurial itch. So it took me a while I've been in construction in a couple different trades, just working as an employee, and done side projects for people all around. But I actually was in audio engineering and manufacturing industry for a good number of years, totally separate from this. But I kind of just felt like after 7-8 years, I think, of doing that, I've kind of felt like my days were numbered, and I wasn't sure why. I was just kind of I'm a Christian. I was listening to that, and I was just kind of like, man, why do I feel like the page is going to be turning for me sometime soon? And we walked by a house that was being built. Just Kristen and I. Kristen's my wife. We run the company together. Walked by a house that was being built, and it just kind of occurred to me. I was like, man, I think I know more about the business of construction intuitively than I do about the business that I'm in. And I was doing well there. I was running different, departments and kind of internally and different things like that too, and building systems and processes for product testing and manufacturing and all this different types of stuff. It was so much fun. I thought I was going to retire there. But yeah, whole different plan. So
Yeah.
ended up starting the business, and I actually had a coffee with a home builder that I knew, and I was kind of looking for a job, is what I was looking for. And at the end of the conversation, I was just kind of telling him, like, man, I feel like I'm need to get back into construction. I don't know if you have advice or if you have a job. I would love to just kind of get back into construction. And he asked me a whole bunch of questions, and I think he kind of sensed the entrepreneurial itch, and my capacity for working with people, leading people and systems and processes and stuff. And he ended up telling me, he's like, I don't have a job, but even if I did, I wouldn't hire you because I think you need to start your own business. And I was like, well, I like that. That sounds
Yeah.
really good. And I ended up doing that. I talked to Kristen and we were on the same page and yeah, started in the middle of COVID and I was doing everything myself at the beginning, but kind of have grown up, got licensed and um, been doing larger scale projects ever since. So
I'm curious, what were some of your first projects?
yeah, let's see. Well, so I kind of, as far as of the trades, I tend towards carpentry projects. I really like working with wood and different things. And I had a CNC machine that I had designed and built a few years before, so I kind of got into cabinetry and stuff eventually. But my very first project, which makes me laugh, was putting in a retaining wall. Because when you start a business, you just take whatever job. If somebody asks, "Hey, can you do this?" And then
Yep.
my dentist, right after that, my dentist asked me if I would put in a concrete sidewalk. And I was like, absolutely, I can. So, so I went and did that. But that was how it started. I just kind of took the jobs as they came and eventually got into more trim and we did lots of trim projects and then got into custom cabinetry before moving into kind of the full general contractor projects. So
Yeah, I love that, man. I think the entrepreneurial itch is very real,
yeah,
and it's something that, it's if that's what you're called to do, it's hard to ignore it if
yeah,
if it's there for you. And I think it sounds though you really had a solid kind of foundation of passion though for
hmm
for building and for construction and working with your hands, and obviously that, like, I think plays a big role in what will keep you going through the tough times. And it's
hmm
obviously probably not been super easy, and
yeah,
having that to fall back on is just like that true love for the trades and for building is awesome that you've got that at heart.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's true. I feel like even you probably, I mean, you've had multiple businesses, everything like that, but you start a business I mean, we are 2 feet in. We want to do this for the rest of our lives, but
Yeah.
there's always this thing in the back of my mind of like, ooh, what if I started this business and could do, and I think there's all these different ideas. So it's a real thing. It just keeps on going, but yeah, it's a blast. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity of the right people in my life and everything to push me to go out and do it because it's risky and it's
Yeah.
scary and leaving a full-time well-paying job to go make almost nothing doing a bunch of stuff you hate for a little while for the hope of building it into something great, and that's where we're at now. And it's man, I'm blessed and grateful. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I've had to, uh, you know, always remind myself, and I think probably my dad's best advice was, you can't boil the ocean, and what I take from that is, like, the importance of focusing and making sure that you put your attention and your efforts to doing something really really great. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs and people who kind of take on multiple projects and ventures and try to create multiple businesses, and at the end of the day, the ones that seem to be the most successful are the ones that had, the founder's undivided attention. And it's just like, this
Mm,
is it. I'm all in. We're 110% invested in making this a success. And
yeah,
that's something that I've had to, I've got my lane, and here's where I go, and here's my business. I'm doing job tread like everything else, all the other opportunities. You just gotta, hey man, now's not the right time. I'm
yeah.
focused. I'm already committed. Um,
It's so true. Yeah, so absolutely true. I had a mentor tell me one time. This was before I started the business, but we were talking about a number of different things, but marriage and then our house. I kind of wanted a new house, and Kristen really wanted to stay and that type of stuff. But this came up in conversation where he told me that peace, like just inner general peace, generally doesn't come until you have a 2 feet in commitment. If you got one foot out the door or thinking about something else, you're going to be torn always. But like when you are fully committed and in it, that's when you really get to feel the peace, feel the joy and excitement of it all. And I've so felt that in the business too, with how many times I've thought about like, during the hard times, it's like, man, I wonder if we should do exteriors. Those guys are always like, seem to be just have plenty of work and stuff or what a different stuff. But I'm like, I don't get excited about exteriors. It's not, doesn't make me happy, but like basements and bathrooms honestly are so much fun, and basements specifically because we spent our whole childhood in the basement. So I don't know. It's fun to see building those places out and seeing what they can become for
yeah.
people. I get excited about it. So 2 feet in, this is what we're doing.
So you said early, you and Kristen, your wife, you spent time kind of talking and deciding to go into this together. So are you both full time on the business, and has it been like that from the beginning?
We are now. So let's
Okay.
see. I started in the fall of 21, and then it was just me until about the summer of 23 is when she joined me full time. And that was soon after I got licensed and we started taking on bigger projects because that kind of helped the cash flow side of things. It was still so scary, and of course, like she gives her job was really good to her. Um, and she was part of it. She's part of a larger company, but she was part of a small team. So it's kind of a small company because nobody else is cross trained in their department, right? Um, so she was leaving that team of 4 people was kind of a big deal. So she gave him a pretty long notice. It was 2 months or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and between when she gave her notice and when she actually left, we made like no more sales. So it was like, so it was just crazy. But yeah, it's this whole thing isn't for the faint of heart, but
Yeah,
it's
for
all
sure.
worked out great, honestly, and soon after that, we had another couple big projects, and then I don't know, say it's 5 or 6 months after that, we doubled our whole year in the
Wow.
course of, like, 30 or 40 days. Um, so it's awesome, but since then, basically, yeah, we've been going full time, and I mainly focus on project management, sales, and, estimating, all that side of things, and then she's really on the back end, in admin. She's actually a certified bookkeeper, so she does our books and all that good stuff too. And a lot of our marketing, honestly, is all her. She's a absolute pro in Canvas. I always want to say Canva. Canva? Which one?
And
Canvas is the scanning app.
yeah.
Canva is the one that she used. I get them mixed up. So, but yeah, she's a pro in that and has helped a ton with our client-facing proposals and documents and things like that too. So that's kind of how we work together.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like you guys really have a very clear kind of roles and responsibilities and, kind of complement each other really nicely there.
Yeah, it's been a journey to get there, but we've really kind of I've taken whole pieces of things that I'm like, I think she could do most of this, and I hand all of it to her, and then she learns it and tells me the stuff that she either doesn't feel like she has the skills or even just the information. Because sometimes if she's like, I need your information to do this, and then that ends up getting passed back to me. If it's kind of like she can't even go an inch without a meeting, then it gets passed to me, right? So then we kind of pass the whole thing and pass part of it back, and we've been doing that more and more, and that's really helped define the lines between what we do. And yeah, that's been really great.
That's awesome. So was she your first official hire?
She was, yep, and only, yep. It's just us two in the business, so
Okay.
we use subcontractors for everything else, and we're going to try to go that way as long as we possibly can. We also have a vendor managing our social media, different things like that. But as far as that goes, it's all vendors and subcontractors outside of
Okay.
Kristen and I. So
Nice. I mean, I think a lot of there's obviously that great debate on, well, do we bring in full-time employees? Do we leverage
yeah,
subs? How have you found that, like, you've had issues with scheduling or with quality? Those are usually probably the top two things I hear, people are concerned about with using subcontractors.
yeah, I've honestly kind of heard that both ways too. In terms of the part of how I talk about it with clients is sometimes you can have if you have subcontractors, and it all depends on the relationship you have with them, right? So
Now,
if you and how good you are at vetting them, and honestly just how sometimes just how lucky you get. It's a roll of the dice sometimes, but the when you have really good subcontractors, a lot of times they're specialists. So they're working and they're experts at what they do, as opposed to sometimes I feel like when companies will have employees, it becomes 3 guys who can do 10 different trades, but maybe none of them at an expert level. So but it's also cheaper to run that way, and you also have more control over the quality. So depending on, I feel like yours and my, general contractor, project manager, um, skills as a manager and leader of employees would have a big difference on how that actually plays out versus subcontractors. For my personality, I really like working with subs. I maybe someday we'll have employees. I wouldn't be surprised, but we're going to run like this as long as we can, just because we feel like it's working really well. But overall, we've been really picky on the subs that we use, though. They have to be competent, of course. I have a phone conversation with them first, and then I go on site to one of their job sites or anywhere that they've had a recent project. and I look at it pretty darn closely and check for. I want people who are meticulous and who generally
Yeah.
care. Um, and then I also want them to interact with Kristen somehow, and that usually comes in with getting their certificate of insurance and that type of stuff. But if I can have Kristen meet them or be on a video call with them or something like that, where she feels comfortable with them in our home,
Hmm.
um, that's usually a really good sign. And we've had good luck with that being kind of a system of, okay, then I can trust them in our client's home, and they can make sure that they're just good people,
Yeah.
and that makes all the difference in the world. People like kind, good people. So,
Yep. No, I think that I think you said it right. I mean, it really does come down to how well are you at picking these people and picking your team and building that team, whether it's
mhm,
full time employees or it's subcontractors. Like at the end of the day, you as a leader, you got to attract great people, you got to recruit great people, and you got to manage them and make
yeah,
sure that they're doing the things and that they know the expectations that you have for them and for the projects. And like at the end of the day, like there's always this great debate, right? Like, and some people are diehard one way or the other, and
yeah,
I think it's great though being able to leverage subs, especially early on
mhm,
when you don't have that consistent cash flow, and you may not know if you're going to get that next job. Like this lets you kind of sort of take a little bit less risk and commitment up front to be able to still get the work done, and when you sell it and like as you go. I know a lot of people will end up hiring their subs on full time, and
yeah,
that's great. That works, but you still had that period where if something happened, you're not having to now lay people off and they're not,
yeah.
being able to put food on their plate. I mean, I think it's a good, healthy balance, especially early on to be able to leverage subs.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. And I wouldn't do it any other way. If I were to start again, I would start with subs, even if the plan was employees down the road, only because of the journey that we've been on, where it's like especially when we switched to larger projects. When I
Mhm.
got licensed, the very first large project that we got, I say large, it was a kitchen and bath remodel. Everything's relative to everybody else, right? So but, for me, I had done trim projects where I replaced the whole house trim for $2,000 or something like that, including materials, and, pricing was just so tough for me early on, and saying the right price of what I needed to say, and I'm an empathetic person, so I'm always looking out for other people before myself, so that's been a journey, but earlier on, like, trying to do that type of thing, using subs allows me to get bids and just have hard reality, real numbers that I can depend on
Yeah.
to work with. And for the very first big project that we did, that was kind of the only thing that we had going on because it was a learning experience. We that prior to that, I think the largest project that I did was 13,000 or something like that. And then I got licensed and I got super lucky because the first project was this kitchen and bath remodel that was like 108. So and it was managing subs for the first time too. So it was a whole different ball game. So I didn't schedule any other projects during it, which means if I had employees, I mean, they maybe could have worked on it, or even if I just had one guy, but there was gaps within there where we were just like, it's the plumber's turn. I don't have anything for you. That would have been really tough to start out with
Yeah.
employees that way. I know plenty of people do it. I'd be curious to know how that looks, but I'd recommend subs to anybody starting off. Just it's more expensive, but you can control and understand the
Yeah.
details throughout it all.
I mean, it to some extent though, like you've again, you don't have to know like their production rate and have to know exactly how long it's going to take them to do every single thing because if you're selling a fixed price project and
Hmm.
you don't know how long it's going to take your team to do it, you're really kind of walking into a situation where you've got this variable cost,
Yep.
versus with a sub, you can basically let them bid on it. You take their bid and whatever it is, you add your markup, your margin on top, and go sell it. And then it's the onus is now on them,
Hmm.
to deliver, and they're getting paid the same amount no matter how long it takes them. It really does mitigate that risk. And
Yep.
again, early on, like you don't have anything to put at risk here. You got to get it right, and you got to be able to deliver on those first couple projects, or you're probably just going to shut the business down as fast as
Yeah.
you started it.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. Well, and that's the funny thing is even in that case, you could know every possible number you could try to plan for, but when you're new at it, like like, I think I misjudged a couple things that I didn't get bids on by thousands, and was totally off on different things, but was earlier on, and just had to learn and figure it out. Like, there's always risk, but it really does mitigate risk in a big way,
Yeah.
and that's where I felt the most comfortable. But then with everything else, kind of what I've learned even now, like, there's certain things that just can't be known. And I'm a detail
For sure.
person. I'm a technical person, so I want to know all the details before I move. So one of the biggest learning pieces for me has been, instead of finding I don't know, finding confidence or security in knowing the details, I need to step forward not knowing the details and find confidence in my ability to problem solve, right? So, like, as I go through things, my confidence has to be really in myself, in my ability to figure it out when and if stuff comes up. And that's made all the difference as a business owner. Be able to step through and to continue moving forward even when I don't know all the details, or don't have a full entire plan sometimes, and we figure it out, and we consistently do. And that's just
No.
continues to help grow that, where we can move forward, serve our clients, do a great job, and not get hung up on things that aren't worth getting hung up on. So,
So how did you handle, early on when you said you made a couple, just mistakes that, ultimately cost thousands of dollars? I mean, how did you handle that with the client? And, did you eat it? Did you try to get a change order? Like, what was your process early on?
yeah, I've usually had a conversation. I've had few of those where it's all, we're always just learning. So I've had a few of those. Clients don't always know, um, haven't always known, that there's probably three that I can think of since we started business. And basically I've had a conversation with the client and just said, hey, here's where we're at. But most of the time I'm thinking about those things ahead of time. And because I always want to know what my ask is when I'm going to talk to a client, like, what am I actually asking for? Most of the time I end up eating all of it, or a large portion of it before I even talk to them. So there's kind of a stage of like, one of them was that first large one that I was just talking about. That kitchen and bath was our first big project. Never used subcontractors. I made a guess on electrical because I was having a hard time getting them out to bid the thing, and the company I was looking into wasn't getting back with me, and I should have sent it out to multiple, one of those learning things. But the and I misjudged that amount by a few $1,000s, and I was kind of like, "Ugh." But at the end of the day, I told my client that I was going to remodel their kitchen, and I was going to do it right and up to code, and we were going to be using licensed and certified professionals throughout the whole project and pull a permit and all that good stuff. So we did it, and most times that's usually how I approach things. Is I'm going to stick to my word and call it a lesson rather than trying to get what I can out of it. Um, the only times that I end up really asking for the clients for anything is if it's legitimately like, we couldn't have known we ran upon this, or there's a
Sure.
cracked vent pipe inside a wall that we didn't open up until we started, right? So stuff like that. But for the most part, we end up eating it.
Yeah.
And we don't share that stuff with clients most often. We just take care of it and call it a lesson and move forward. So,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think so many people, that there is this balance of, hey, what is worth, trying to go fight for and get a change order or
hmm
recoup, versus what isn't worth it. Where do you draw that line? And, like, at the end of the day, like, you got to deliver the right
hmm
solution. And I think standing by your word, and if you sold them, a project and that should have been included, I think that there's something to be said about making sure that you stand by, what you sold, because your reputation is
hmm
so much more valuable than,
always.
the couple $1,000 that may have to come out of your pocket to make sure you do right by your client.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that, there are those contractors out there who, would, take the money and run, and might not even, fix the issue to begin with, and
hmm
that's I think giving the whole industry a bad reputation. So, when people find, a contractor who is doing what they say they will do and taking care of the client, like, I think that's so valuable, and so important that, you can be there and stand by your word, man. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And what's funny about it to me is, like, when you And I can understand that. I can understand the inclination to protect every dollar and to be really and to get defensive in those cases and to try to get every penny out of it. I can understand the inclination. But what's funny is like you're exactly right. A good name is better than riches. A good reputation is better than everything, right? So it's like if we can just, calm the inside scary pieces of potentially losing money in those
Yeah.
situations and approach the situation with some wisdom and some just patience and everything like that too. It's actually the smart thing to do, right? It's not like it's selfish to you know what I mean? Like it's just the right thing to do to hold that up, and it's actually more selfish for your business if you're thinking long run, not selfish in a bad way, but self thinking about yourself and the business and your family and everything like that. If you're thinking long, it's so much better, and everything ends up better that way too, because you don't have to be reactive about the little
Yeah.
things. You call them a lesson and move on, and that's proven, yeah, so much better. Approach those
You know, I,
situations with calm.
I think too, what's interesting is that, a lot of times at the end of the day, after the project's all said and done, like the homeowner is not going to remember every single detail and all the challenges that came up, but like what they will remember is the experience and
Hmm.
how you made them feel. And when they know that you took care of them, like you're earning their referrals and their recommendations and like
Hmm.
that word of mouth, like that will go so much farther than that particular thing that came up that you dealt with. Like it's just about the experience that you provide. And when they feel like they have found a great contractor, like they're so much more likely to tell others about that. And it can just come back and pay, for itself many-fold over. It's almost like that little issue that you took care of. It cost you a little bit today, but
Yeah.
man, it could pay for so much more coming back towards you later.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding. It's so true. And that's also the reason to charge enough for the project to actually do the project well, because people are always trying to so many contractors are trying to win projects. They cut the costs and then they're like, "Oh shoot, I actually have to do this project at this cost." And then they start to find the compromises to make the
Yeah.
numbers work. And it just doesn't make sense because that's not what you sold the client. So it's like when you can charge enough to do the project the right way, then you can make a great experience and also deliver in every area that matters on the actual build. In Man, it just makes a world of difference. We just reached out to a client today. We're proactive about our warranty visits. So we actually set up about 10, 11 months after the project's finished up. We reach out to the client and say, hey, we'd love to stop by, just check on the project and make sure everything's holding up the way that it's supposed to. And that's a service thing that we do, but it's really helpful just to get in front of people again and stay in touch with our clients. And but this client we reached out to this morning, she got back right away and she said, I don't think a visit's necessary. Everything's holding up great. We're so happy about it. Thanks for reaching out. It's fun to hear from you guys. And tell Candido we said hi, which is one of the main guys who worked on their project. And those like you I don't know, those are it's so rewarding. It's so fun to
Yeah.
hear from clients when the experience was great and they're happy with the product even a year later. Um, and you can't do that unless you stick to your word on every part of it, and you can't stick to your word on every part of it unless you know how to manage these projects, how to price the projects to do them the right way the first time. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's all such a learning game, but it's yeah, so much fun.
Well, I mean, you mentioned earlier that, you felt like pricing was kind of like one of the hardest things early on. And, you're talking about now, like the importance of pricing the project and charging, what you're worth. I mean, like how did you learn all of this early on? Because I know so many people struggle with pricing. I mean, and I think in general, like really in any business, I think pricing is one of the most complicated, most
Hmm.
challenging things to figure out. So how did you learn and figure out what do you charge for your work? How did you figure that out?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question because I feel like I'm still learning and always learning. But again, it's helpful to have some projects and start to do projects where we've done similar projects before and we can kind of compare and stuff. That really is the place where you can start to have real data to work with. But at the beginning of the company, I had no data. I had the perk that I was doing everything myself. So and I don't want to say it's necessarily a great thing to think of long term, but at the most, I knew what my material costs were going to be, and I would give my labor for free or a good chunk of it for free if I got things wrong, right? So it's like it was more about learning my labor costs of what I needed to charge for that. And then eventually, after that point, learned that the business has to eat too. And there's taxes and there's insurance and all kinds of crazy things and overhead stuff and all this different things. Um, so I feel like earlier on, I was shooting from the hip. There was real no science or rhyme or reason. I was tracking stuff, I should say. I mean, I was doing my best to kind of track things, but the biggest thing in my way, I think, was an assumption that I didn't uncover until a year or two later, that uh, about my own value and what I know how to do, because I wouldn't pay for my services, but it's because I know how to do them, right? So it's like I wouldn't pay for my services more than this amount, so that's what I would charge. And but the truth is, none of my clients know how to do this stuff that I know how to do, and that's why they're paying me. And so there's kind of this, and then okay, so how valuable is that? So it's a whole journey, but I'll say tracking is just tracking costs is so stinking helpful and valuable, and you can't build a business without it. Um, there's different levels of how detailed you can get with tracking, of course, but just find a way. Just say trim job, whole house, if it's your first one or two or something, whole house base trim, roughly this many square feet or linear feet, and I price this much, and then make some notes that felt low, and whatever. Just start somewhere and grow from there and figure it out. And then get something awesome like Job Tread to help you out later. So little plug there,
Yeah.
but
I well, it's
yeah.
it's interesting though. People don't realize the importance of taking the time to do the job costing and to actually compare, "Hey, here's what I expected the cost to be, and here's what it actually came in." Like, I mean, when I was running the construction business, like that was the thing that like we literally never stopped to analyze our performance. We ended up waking up 6 months later and found that like every, this particular job that we sold in Houston over and over and over again, like we literally were losing 10 to 12%, and it was like
Right.
we just never stopped to look and say, hey, how do we perform? Did we make what we thought we were going to make? And it was like, it was every time we did a fencing job, we just never updated the cost for our material. And so, we were just basically paying the client to put up more, fence for them. And like, you can't run a business that way. You can't scale a business if you don't know your numbers and you don't have it dialed in. And I
Hmm.
think to your point, like when you start tracking that, yeah, it takes, running some jobs, getting some data, but then being able to continually kind of compare back and say, hey, like, that felt low, or, we kind of made this mistake here and we should have adjusted there. Like you got to take the time to
Hmm.
update, your templates and your models and make sure that, you don't keep making the same mistake over and over and over again.
Yep. Oh, so true. And again, like it's there, you can go so deep into that stuff, which is the more you do, the more you're going to get out of it, right? The more
Yep.
helpful it's going to be, the more you dig into those tools. But just starting somewhere, I've talked to so many contractors that are just like, they're like, it sounds too much for me. It sounds too overwhelming. And I'm like, man, just write down the price, write down a description of the job and how you felt about it by the end. Like start there,
Yep.
just go somewhere and then grow, because you can grow into everything that you're talking about, and you'll see all of this awesome fruit come from it, of being able to feel good about your projects by the time you're done with them, and actually enjoy what you do and have your clients enjoy the process too, because you're doing things the way they should be done.
Yeah. So you said to earlier, kind of, again, starting off, you just took whatever jobs came your way. How did you sort of figure out that you wanted to really, niche down and focus on basements and baths? And it sounds like there might have been kind of a little bit of a rebranding in there. Like how did that all
Mhm.
sort of come to fruition for you?
Yeah. Oh, that's a fun question. So I started off, I kind of knew I wanted to do the general contracting thing. Just dad being a project manager, getting to see a lot of that world. Granted, he's in commercial and he's a subcontractor, but still, I knew enough about it, and I knew that I liked residential a lot better, and I liked interiors a lot better. So I kind of had a lot of that before I even started the business. But I knew too that I didn't necessarily want to start off doing, looking for bathroom remodels. I wanted to make all of my early business mistakes on small transactions, right? That just kind of felt prudent. So, and because there were plenty. But yeah, and all in all, it kind of started doing trim. I got into custom cabinets because I had that CNC, and it kind of felt like a good thing to be able to start doing. I kind of learned about cabinets and custom barn doors and fun stuff like that. Um, Once I felt like I had just the rhythm of being a contractor, being a business owner, all that type of stuff down a little bit, and I felt like, okay, I got a handle on this. I don't feel like concerned every day about the business. It's kind of working. That maybe took about a year and a half or so, and felt pretty comfortable with the rhythm. So I started studying for my license, and maybe over the course of a couple months or so, I studied for that, got my general contractor's license, and then I wasn't really sure where to go next. And it was that kitchen and bath project. It was one of my favorite projects to date, honestly. But they reached out to me as a carpenter, because that's what I was still kind of branded as at the time, for a kitchen facelift. And that escalated into a full kitchen remodel. And then they eventually asked me, while we were kind of in that proposal process, they're like, hey, we've had a couple contractors bid our bathroom that we're thinking about doing, but could you do that as well? And so I said, well, do you mind if I ask you a question? Is this about getting a better price, or is it about consolidating the contractor? And they said, well, consolidating the contractor for sure. We would just way rather have one do everything, and we like you for the kitchen. And I said, absolutely, that sounds great. I'll take measurements today and we'll get that figured out. And ended up doing both, which was so fun. So that was kind of the entrance into the larger projects, which we've been doing ever since. And then there was kind of a time in there we were kind of trying to decide. And actually, Joe Averill I love that dude. You just interviewed him, I think, at whatever recently, and he's a shark. He's just so awesome. But I was talking to him, and he was telling me, he's like, why do you do so many things? And I was like, we advertise kitchens, baths, and basements just like every other general contractor. He goes, yeah, that's way too many things. So after that conversation, of course, and many others with him too, and a few others, we ended up starting to think about how we wanted to niche down. And basements and bathrooms are kind of what came out of that. Basements are big anchor projects for us, where they can last a little longer, be a lot more steady. They're great projects. And bathrooms are awesome kind of smattering projects to go throughout, where we can do multiple projects at a time. We try to layer our basements, where we're starting one after finishing another, but we can do bathrooms kind of all throughout the process too, because they're different enough. We can manage them well and do that type of thing. So that's kind of where we ended up getting our focus.
That's great. And, I mean, I've seen your website. I mean, you really have kind of narrowed it in. The other thing that I really love is that, you actually have pricing published on your website, and I know a lot of people kind of sort of debate on that, whether, you should do that or not do that. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about, what led you to decide to publish kind of these price ranges, if you will, and how has that affected your ability, to bring in and attract the right leads and hopefully close them?
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's been an interesting one. I don't know anybody else in our area that does that, aside from probably Joe, and there's one others. And we actually met through a coaching program that we're in. That's a nationwide coaching program, and that's one of the things that they talk about is specific for contractors. But the idea actually comes from Marcus Sheridan's. I think it's Marcus Sheridan's book, They Ask You Answer, where he's talking about how clients they want to know pricing. If that's what they want to know first, put it on your website, like put it out there. And so what's funny though is, especially for what we do, that took months. It was so hard to come up with numbers that actually made sense. So the way that we decided to go about it is we have starting prices. So we'll say a 3/4 bathroom with shower panels as opposed to tile, shower panels, and basically a full gut otherwise, or your vanity, toilet, flooring, walls, ceiling, lighting, everything. Then we started about 37,000, and that's what it's at currently. And then we have similar ones for tile, and then we have a full bathroom. We have those similar prices, and then basement we have similar prices with or without the bathroom. However many rooms, if you're going to do a wet bar theater, there's different things like that. So we just kind of put all those things on there, and all of those prices are starting at prices because it gives us a baseline. But what I didn't expect when we did that is, on our initial phone calls, when I'm talking pricing early on with our clients to give them a good idea of what it is, the thing I didn't really expect is how much that would almost I don't know if credentializes is the right word, but it kind of it supports the conversation where people know that I'm not raising the price because they told me they're a doctor, right? Like I'm not doing something like that because the price is listed, and I can relate it right to the website. It just kind of creates this foundation of trust, and more than likely they've already looked at it before our call, and then the numbers aren't surprising. So for the most part, it's been really helpful in giving people a good idea, and I'm just trying to give people what they want earlier on, and setting expectations for where we sit and kind of who we are and everything like that too. So it's been really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more with everything Marcus Sheridan in his book They Ask You Answer. I mean, I heard him. I think we were both at the same, was it Mile High Profit Summit a couple 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. He was there last year, and I think the year before, or
Yep.
maybe something like that. But yeah, I mean, it was like such an awesome talk that he gave, and like I went out and I bought his book and read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I bought
Yeah.
like 5 or 6 more, gave them to everyone on the team. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, you got to read this. Like we're making all these decisions, to like, I mean, for us, like we were like, having like, all of our kind of product update webinars, like it was only for customers. And, when he talked about like, if you're doing things that like, to hide, information from the competition, well, you're also hiding it from your prospects in the market. And you're actually doing
Mm-hmm.
your customers a disservice, by
Mm-hmm.
not like just sharing what are they looking for? What do people need to know to be able to work with you? And I love how he talked about just, again, put it out there, all those tough conversations, those tough questions, like go make a list of the top 10 most common, most important things that anybody needs to know about you and working with you, and publish it.
Mm-hmm.
Create blog posts and videos. And like, I mean, we immediately started doing that. And like, I mean, I was talking to Marcus the other day, and like I told him, I was like, man, like I would attribute a lot of Job Tread's inbound organic growth is because, you inspired us to get on YouTube and publish everything. And like ever
Seriously.
since then, like, I think we're almost like 500 YouTube videos now. And it's just like, it's crazy what it can do to just put it out there, be open, transparent. Like, if pricing is going to be a challenge for some of your customers, it's so much easier to just get that out of the way. The elephant is out,
Yep.
out up front than to have to come in later. I mean, it alleviates the pressure on you having that really, really tough, conversation where you're just dreading telling them the price because,
Mm-hmm.
they already kind of have an idea.
Yep. It's so true. It just gives a framework and an idea. And what's cool too is like it all kind of makes sense. Where for us, you can look on our basement page and see what a basement is. And if they will decide they want to finish their bathroom too, we have pricing listed there, but it all lines up with our bathroom page. So it's like it just makes sense. That's what these projects to do cost to do, in a
Yeah.
way to do them well and do them right, with good materials and all that type of stuff too. But it makes such a huge difference just to lead with that and start with that. Um, it answers a lot of questions and helps people a lot, so they can plan early. I can't tell you how many people I talk to where they're like, yeah, we decided we want to do this. We had a few contractors out. It's been about a month. I'm still waiting on some numbers for most of them, and I'm just kind of like, wow, like they couldn't have give you something sooner, huh? But yeah, it's amazing.
So and you talked about kind of being part of like a coaching group. I assume that's Battleground and Contractor Fight in that
It
group.
is, yep. Tom Reber started this awesome program called Battleground. The Contractor Fight is their kind of organization. They have a free Facebook page that has a ton of great stuff in it, and then Battleground is their paid program, and it is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that, I feel like he has really helped a lot of people to understand, their worth and their value and the importance of, charging the right amount,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that there's a lot of people, who, again, it's if you really want to kind of dial it in, like, you heavily encourage that, but if you don't know where to start, his starting point is take your cost and double it,
Yep.
and go sell it at a 50% profit margin. And that is a great place to start. It'll allow you to have that cushion. If something goes wrong, you need to cover it, just like
Mm-hmm.
how you said, and at the end of the day though, I mean, you can, you can pay yourself good, you can pay your people, everyone is able to make money and do, and be properly compensated and incentivized for doing great work.
Yep. It's so true. And what's funny is that sounded so excessive to me. Like when I first heard that, it sounded like such excessive pricing, and I'm like, holy moly. And it's what's crazy is the more that I've kind of learned through it, and as I've kind of adjusted my margins accordingly, and I had the mindset earlier on, like, even when we were doing some of our first projects, is like things like I can't afford the proper insurance. I need to find the cheapest insurance that just barely gets me by. And it's insurance. It's like a huge deal. So but I was assuming that I couldn't possibly charge what I actually needed to charge to do the job right. And when I say that, I mean good materials, people who know how to install them, and everything on the back end of the business to just operate in a way that protects the homeowner, because that's what most homeowners don't know to even ask is, are you insured? Yes. Okay, good enough. But it's not good enough, because what if I paid $20 a month for my insurance and I'm a general contractor doing $100,000 project? It's not enough, and it's not going to be sufficient when it comes down to it. So, knowing how to back it up and do that stuff well, and knowing what's involved in that, the only way to do that is to charge appropriately, which so many contractors are just missing, I think, um, and stuck in the mindset that you can't possibly charge those things, just like I was, and learning more and more every day of this is just what it costs to do a great job, and at the end of the day, that's our goal. We set out to remodel the client experience, and that's kind of cute, right? But we really want to adjust the process and give it a facelift, because people are so used to a certain way of working with contractors, and it's like, okay, get the ibuprofen ready. This is going to be awful. And that's what people have been used to, especially from what I hear about people around here. But we're trying to make it not only good, but fun and awesome and happy with the results and everything. And the only way to do that is to charge enough to do it right. So
No.
yeah, makes a big
Are
difference.
you how have you seen kind of some of the, the whole tariffs and, the kind of the uncertainty right now in the economy and all that, has that kind of affected your, your lead flow, getting jobs closed and run? I mean, has that made an impact on you?
Yeah, I haven't seen it in our vendors too much yet, in our material prices. Watching it very closely, but I haven't seen too much of it yet. I think it's definitely affected lead flow a little bit, because people wonder about those things, of course, and everything. Lead flow's been down for the last, about since then, last month or two. But we still have plenty of work that we've signed up, up until then, at the moment. So it's yeah, we'll kind of see how the year goes. It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of lands. Um, but I mean, what was crazy is all this. There's all the tariffs and everything going on, and that kind of leading up to COVID. COVID was nuts. It was bonkers for construction. There was so much stuff happening, but it was largely because so many people were home so much
Yeah.
more, right? So I'm not sure what to expect out of the
Yeah.
next year, but I think I'm a firm believer that if you do a good job and you are honest and hardworking and you go after it and build good relationships, which I feel like we've been doing from the beginning, that there's never going to be a shortage of work for people like that.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. I'm curious, before we kicked off, we were kind of talking a little bit, and I mean, you brought up the importance of marriage and faith. So as somebody who runs a business with, with your wife here, I mean, how do you all manage the work life balance? Like, what's it like in the Larson, household? Are we coming home to the dinner table and talking shop, or do you guys have some sort of way to kind of take a little bit of personal time separate? How do you kind of manage that?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good lengthy question and answer, I feel like. But overall, I feel like I heard a story recently. I was reading a book, and it talked about how the whole idea of a work-life balance didn't really come into play until I think it was the Industrial Revolution or something like that. But largely, like in the agricultural world, you just worked when the work needed to be done, and sometimes it was morning till night, and sometimes, and it just all kind of landed. It was all integrated into life, and so that's kind of how we approach it. Where we'll work nights, we'll work weekends sometimes. We'll take breaks to do things in the middle of the day that are house related or whatever else. We kind of integrate everything into our whole lives. So what we do to create kind of that separation otherwise is we'll just be really honest with each other. Like, I can't talk work anymore today. And, or like, hey, I got a bunch of work stuff to talk about. I need an hour or 4 hours or whatever of your time sometime this week. And we just try to be as communicative as possible with each other. And that makes a huge difference. we've still kind of struggled sometimes with work becoming just all consuming because we both love what we do, and there's always plenty to do. And one of the things we've been doing weekly date nights for quite a while, which has been just an absolute game changer on the marriage side of things. Because if that falls apart, it all falls apart, right? So we do, ours is Thursday night, so we'll do date nights, and then every other week. So every, 1 week I'll decide what we're gonna do, and it's usually something that where I feel loved and I feel appreciated, that type of thing. But it just gives me an opportunity to communicate what I appreciate, what kind of dates I appreciate. And the next week we do that for her. And it's kind of teaching us how to teach each other how to love each other. And that, I guess if you want to put it that way. And then one question we've started to ask each other recently, at the start of every date night, we'll ask, what have I done in the past week or two that have made you feel loved and seen? And that's created some really fun conversations that have just helped us to connect, and it's like, and that's the thing, like, because it's ships passing in the night is a real thing in marriage, and just being able to hardly connect at all, but still live in the same house, so the goal in those date nights is to really connect. And that question, and doing that every other week, every week date night with every other week's kind of choosing what to do has just been awesome. That's been really good for us and keeping things kind of thriving and healthy. So,
And that's awesome advice. I'm gonna actually implement that right away. My wife and I, we set out to do weekly date night and even put it on the calendar, but
yeah.
somehow, you got two kids, we just got a puppy. Like, it's so easy to kind of just deprioritize, each other, and we've been struggling to figure out how do we kind of get back on track with that. And I love that question. So, what have I done in the past week or two that has made you feel love? Is that right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, dude, because it's what's so cool is she wears her emotions on her sleeve. I know what she's thinking. I know what she's feeling just by looking at her, because that's just who she is. So she's a lot easier to read on that front. I'm not. I am completely in my head unless somebody asks me. So so but all around, it's still been enlightening for me too to ask the question, because she'll tell me things and I'm like, oh wow, you appreciated that more than what I did over here. And it's just and it's been helping me more and more to show her love, because I'm continuously learning how specifically she feels love, right? And so yeah, it's been really helpful and rewarding, and it's shown up in our work back in the business. We're both feeling more lively, we're feeling connected, we're laughing more. Just since integrating that question into our date nights has just been a really cool thing.
Man, that's awesome. And I think too, what I sense is that you guys have, very intentional and really strong communication, with each other. And I think that, again, that's so important at home, but also in the workplace. And I think when people, again, like, things are going to come up, feelings are going to come up, emotions,
Hmm.
situations, and it's so important that, as leaders, you take the time to stop and ask people, how are you doing? What's on your mind? Like, is there something
Hmm.
that's bothering you? Is there a way that I could help you? Like, just having that open and honest communication, that's so important. I think with everything in life, right?
Hmm.
Like,
So
just being
true.
able to communicate is it's often, I think, up front, can be sort of this like awkward, challenging thing. At least maybe for some people, if you're naturally like an introvert, and kind of just the small talk and conversation
Yeah.
isn't always as easy. It's so valuable though, and it's so insightful when you can learn to be able to do that and to have those tough conversations. And ultimately, when done right, like, everyone walks away feeling so much better because they've got that, the things lifted off their shoulders and off their chest. And, like, you don't have to
Hmm.
walk around kind of, upset and angry because you were able to bring it out and have that conversation and figure out how to move forward.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so true. And it's like there's a- there's a there's a building process to a life, right? So it's like and I think there's, for me, foundation, there's faith, there's my marriage, there's just this important stuff where if that's cracking and falling apart, I feel like my whole world's falling apart, right? And then and business is up higher, right? So there's kind of like this whole this whole layering process of like, man, take care of you, take care of your health, and take care of your relationships, especially the most important ones, and be okay letting others go, especially on this journey. Like it's we can't be close with everybody. We can't have 100 best friends, right? And you can maybe kind of get away with that as when you're a kid and in teenager and kind of growing up, or and maybe in some circles and ways as an adult, but especially when you're out taking risks and building something and doing this type of thing, like you got to have just a few close people,
Mhm.
and take care of those relationships, take care of you, all of this type of stuff. And that's where it builds. That's where it really starts to feel good. Freedom isn't being able to do everything you want. Freedom is feeling at peace, doing what you want to do, right? So it's like if you can feel like you're seen and known and loved by the people around you, and you're going after something you're passionate about, like there's no better feeling of freedom than that. It's yeah. I could talk a while
Well,
on all that stuff if you can't tell.
man,
So,
that's awesome, man, and it's so insightful. I mean, this whole conversation has been, really great. I'm kind of curious here as we wrap up. I mean, is there anything, in particular, any advice that you could give for others out there who maybe earlier on in their journey, they're trying to decide whether they should start their own business, or if they should, maybe they got one foot on the tools, one foot in the business, like how to kind of navigate some of these early challenges, like just anything like you wish you would have known, back when you were starting, that you now know that might help somebody else, hopefully skip over a couple of those hard knocks, those lessons that,
mm.
that you had to learn.
Oh man, there's so many of them, so many lessons, but the ones that pop up to mind, um, know who you are, right? And don't try to do somebody else's journey. And don't try to have somebody else's goals. Like really figure out who you are and what kind of life you want to have, and get a vision for it so that you're aiming. I mean, otherwise, because really, I feel like especially when you can get out on your own and be like, I want to start a business and I want it to be in construction and I want it generally to be like this, but you can still go 1,000 different ways in that. So the more focused you can get, the more and get a vision for 5 years, for 10 years from now, just figure out what you want it to look like and start to make decisions to go after that. And just like I said, take care of you. It's like you just have to put your oxygen mask on first, then you can go help other people. It's the whole idea of if you're not in good standing with yourself and in good health, all that type of stuff, then you can't do anything. So take care of you, get a vision and go after it. And don't try to do somebody else's journey. Don't try to be someone else. It's just not worth it. And it's not fun. It takes all the joy out of it, and it's like, man, be happy and do that by figuring out who you are and going after what you want. So,
And that's awesome, Luke. Seriously, like I can tell that you truly know that and believe that and have
mm,
have figured that out. It's such great advice. I mean, life is just too short to not do what you love, and being able to do it with the people that you love and that you want, to get up every single day excited. That you got to figure out how to put yourself in that position and take care of yourself and make sure that every day you are excited to go and conquer the world. And if you're not, then you gotta take a step aside, look in and say, man, what do I need to change? What do I
yeah.
need to do to get into that position? Because again, we've only got one life, one opportunity here. You got to figure out how to get there. And it's coming through loud and clear. Like I can tell how
hmm
passionate and how excited you are. And you've got that love for your work, for your
mm,
wife, for your faith. Like, again, you've got it dialed in, Luke. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this story and kind of opening up with everyone out there about the challenges that you've had. And it's just been really exciting to be able to kind of watch just here as a, little guy on the side, being able to just see how you have created this. But, you've done a great job. You're setting, your company up as a role model for others that they can learn from and continue to build and improve their business. So just
mm.
want to thank you for coming on, for sharing this and being part of this community.
Oh, wow, man. Thank you so much. It's so fun. So glad to be here. We're a huge fan of yours too, and of your whole team. You guys are just incredible, and such a support to the contracting industry in a huge way. And we're so grateful. So thanks for having me here. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. See you, Luke.
Yeah. See ya.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.